So, welcome to the next edition of the Rare Business Podcast. With me today, I have David Hieatt. Hi, David.
Hi there. How are you doing?
I'm very well, sir. So, David, is that the right way to pronounce your name? Because Hieatt.
Yeah, it's a mouthful, but it's pronounced Hyatt.
Fantastic.
Um,
So, David, tell us a bit about you and about what you do and things, because you've had a fantastically interesting sort of journey and doing some amazing sort of stuff and being associated with some really iconic brands and things. But so, can you give us a bit of a feel for where you've come from, what you do, and for the benefit of our listeners and our readers?
yeah, I mean, I guess I'm an entrepreneur, and I love brands. And I left school at 16, and I borrowed £500 from my dad to work on a market stall. And within 6 months, I'd lost all his money, and I was bankrupt. But I definitely found something I loved doing, and I was being in business and being around sort of great, interesting brands. So I was lucky enough to get thrown out of college, and then I painted and decorated for a living to pay off my overdraft, and then I spent 8 to 9 years at an amazing advertising agency under a fantastic boss, and I had a blast. I had a field day. And that agency was Saatchi, my boss is Paul Arden, and I was very lucky to be under somebody like him, who's a complete and utter maverick.
Is that Paul Arden, the author, Paul Arden, as well?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, I love his books. He's genius.
He's a genius, and I spent 8 years getting bollocked by him. So I I learned from a tough boss for a brilliant boss.
Fantastic.
And then I left advertising. I came back to Wales. I started a clothing company called Howie's. I built it, and it kind of grew too fast. So we got into, we just grew amazingly fast, and it was too much for us. And we ended up selling it to Timberland.
Uh-huh.
And then I left. I tried to buy it back, but I left after that. And then my next big project, which is the Hieatt Denim Company.
Mm-hmm.
My town is a remarkable town, in as much as it used to make 35,000 pairs of jeans a week, every week,
Uh-huh.
for 30 to 40 years. So all that knowledge, that skill, when the factory closed, didn't have anywhere to practice its art. So I figured after leaving Howie's, I'd grown to love two things there, and that was jeans and merino. And but my town knew how to make jeans, and I love how they get better with age. I wish we could say the same, but and also, I mean, the fact that they're the uniform for the creative folk, and yes. I spent working life with creative people, and those people and their ideas always inspired me. So I thought, make a great product in a great town that knows how to make that great product, and sell it to those great people.
And I think that's. I mean, first of all, I know the Howie's brand, and Howie's are. I think they're an amazing brand. I think one of the best descriptions I ever heard of Howie's was they said it was almost the UK's equivalent of Patagonia.
Yeah.
In how you approach things, which I think is no faint compliment in of itself. But I think you guys are doing something which also was very, very different, and very very particular to yourselves, which is fantastic. I've got a whole bunch of friends that are big fans of Howie's. But then when we met at an event here in Brighton recently, now you told the story about the Hieatt denim, and I think what I really kind of loved is the idea that there's a real sort of community sort of feel, or almost going back to, we've got this legacy, we've got this embedded knowledge, and we're using that to leverage that to do something which is, as you say, is almost like an artful thing.
It absolutely it is, and interestingly, one of the guys who cuts the denim, I've got my laptop on the cutting table because he's not here today, but he cut jeans for 38 years.
Right.
And he said to me, Dave, my biggest worry of all was that I wouldn't have anybody to pass my skills onto. And we're in that 10-year period now. If we don't get this knowledge now, then and harness it and actually train the next group up, then that knowledge will be lost. And when he said that to me, I kind of thought, actually, God, my very best to make this thing work, because actually it's really important, because there's a lot riding on it, like in terms of, can we get this town to make jeans again? And if we don't, then the skill is going to be lost.
I think that's absolutely right. But I think what's interesting about it, because I mean, the thing that really fascinates me and what I'm really interested in is how people build businesses that customers love. But I think
Yeah.
what you're talking about is I think you will achieve that because you're coming at it from a place of, well, we're going to do something that we love and we completely believe in, and in doing that, we'll hopefully build something that customers love, because there's no other better way, a more sustainable way of doing it.
Yeah. And I think, whenever I'm asked the question again, how do you get somebody to love your company? I think you have to love it first, and you have to love it in all sorts of ways, where you consider just about everything from a label to how they open, a package from you, how they can return stuff to you, and to make all those things simple steps for the customer is good. But also, we buy why companies start, or what they want to change, and as well as the product that they make. For me, I'm trying to get a town to make jeans again, and it's a great sentiment. But I also kind of believe in ideas people, and I love ideas and I love being around them, and I just want to be that company that actually brings some ideas to this industry, because in 100 years, it has changed a great deal.
Sure.
Levi's did a pretty good job at nailing, the 501. But you can go, well, that's good, but how do you bring some change to this industry? And I hope, that we have some ideas that bring some change to this industry. I can't say too much, but I mean, we're definitely going to play around a bit.
Well, I think that you did talk about one idea where you, if you think about jeans, a lot of people will think about Levi's or Wranglers or whatever, and they're very much mass produced. But you were actually talking about, well, actually we're doing a lot of this by hand, and actually we're giving every pair of jeans a life and a personality and a story.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think that's what some of the, because you said artists in the talk the event that I went to, you said artists always sign their work. Well, I thought that's brilliant.
Yeah, and I think it's we have to acknowledge that we can make 100 pairs of jeans a week, but we don't want to like demonstrate to everyone how many jeans we can make a week, but how many great ones we can make a week. And there is a slight difference in those things, where we want to make the best jeans we can, but not the most jeans we can. And it might be that our company is always small, but it will always try to be great. I think there's a complication in that formula. Is actually when you set out to be great, more customers come.
Yes.
And so the artist thing is interesting for two reasons. My dad told me a story. He was an electrician in Navy ships, and his biggest problem was actually the guy before him didn't care. So when he came to the ship, actually all the stuff wasn't great. So what he started doing was signing each job he did,
right,
just with his initials. So to try and get that culture of away from, well, it doesn't matter how good a job I do because nobody's going to know. He wanted everybody to know that actually he did care about each job. So he put his initial against it. So the next guy couldn't complain about, oh, that guy didn't care about it, and blame him.
Sure.
And Steve Jobs did the same thing in terms of he got all the engineers to sign the inside of the Macintosh, even though the customer would never see it.
Right.
He believed that they were artists, and actually all artists sign work. And it's a notion of the carpenter who makes you a window and he wants to put his little name against it. And because actually what it's saying is that actually I'm really proud of this thing that I've made. Um,
Yes.
and when you make something great, you want to put your name to it.
Yes. And
Yeah.
you'll put more effort into it and spend more time on it because it carries your name.
Yes.
It's your story.
It is, and these people who make them have 20 to 30 years of experience of making jeans, and it's important to them to sign their work.
Yes.
Um, we're going to make less jeans than Rolls-Royce will make cars next year.
Yeah.
Um, but what I'm trying to instill in everybody is like, look, we just have to be great at this thing. That's all. That's the only thing I've asked is like, can we be great at this thing? Because actually, the customer's gonna pick that up pretty soon.
Yeah.
And they notice it in all different ways. But and I feel like that's really a big question for a company. Like, do we want to be great, and what do we have to do to be great? And it just means about there's about 70 processes in terms of making our gene, and we only have to be great at 70 of them
Yes.
because it's just details, and we kind of say that look, we're trying to do one thing well. We're only going to make genes, and we're only going to make them here, but it's an extraordinary undertaking
Mm.
to try and do something like better than anybody else.
Your approach raises an interesting question because when people talk about businesses and they talk about starting businesses and where they how they orient themselves, and there's this idea of growth, growing a business.
Yeah,
Immediately, a lot of people can think about size and scale.
yeah,
But actually, growth can mean a number of different things. It could be about depth or quality or finesse or sophistication or whatever it might be. So
yeah,
it's actually, I think growth is one of the things in business is a lot of people think very linearly in terms of growth means must get
yeah,
bigger,
yeah, yeah.
and actually it's not as linear as that. Growth can mean a number of different things, and I think what's really interesting about your story and what you're trying to do now is actually you're talking about growing something and building something which is actually great, but it can be great and be small at the same time if that's the way it works out.
Yeah, and I think that both thing that I've learned is that you're much better off growing slowly, but maybe consistently.
Uh huh.
Factories they can't manage sudden spikes. For us, we can't suddenly if we get 5,000 orders in 1 week. We can only still make 100 pairs,
Yeah.
and some of our customers have had to wait an awful long time for jeans, and in this world, patience is tough to come by.
Sure.
But we've been very lucky in finding some great customers who go, hey, okay, we understand you're going to make a great gene, but just not a fast gene.
Yes.
But going back to your point about growth, is I guess when I've run companies, I've asked it to grow, but not in terms of sales. I've asked, how can we bring ideas to this thing? That's for me an important sign of growth in terms of, can we exert influence on this industry by our ideas?
Sure.
Actually, the byproduct of that is actually more customers come.
It,
I think sometimes we just like shoot for the wrong thing.
I think that's true. It's almost like if you throw more resources at something, then it's almost like it's a shortcut because actually, based on what you were saying before, it reminds me of an idea that Steve Jobs talked about in Apple, where it's one of the key things is about how you make something which can be quite complicated as simple as it possibly can be, and
Yeah.
I think that there's beauty in that.
Yeah, and I think Apple. I don't think everyone really understands Apple. Doing in terms of that they see all these cool products, but they always try to bring simplicity to something which is quite complex, and how they resolve that complexity is what makes them different. And when they talk about design, it's not just to make it beautiful; it's to make it like work simpler.
Yes.
And we're very good at adding complexity to our lives, and we're very good at adding complexity to our businesses. But we're less good at taking complexity away. But for us, we have to learn to say no to a great deal of things. right now, lots of people are going, can you go and start a shop? And we say, well, we can, but we won't. We need to focus. Can we make T-shirts? Yes, we can, but we won't. And we're just going to try and make this extraordinary well. And actually, we have some ideas that might take us another 5 years to bring to market. So I think you're also defined by things that you refuse and you say no to, because you need to free up your time and you need to focus your time on the thing that matters.
Yes.
And these things that get in our way mean we have less time to focus on the thing that matters.
I think that's absolutely, it's absolutely right, and I think that what you say about it's really important to focus on what you're not supposed to be doing. So I almost said that because it's too easy to get distracted by other things, and actually it's to almost get in the habit of saying no rather than saying yes, and that's not necessarily a negative approach to things. Actually, it's a really positive and very focused approach to things, but sometimes you have to just say no, 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 and get into the habit of saying no, and just say, I'm doing this, I do this, I do this, I do this, this is all that I do. And,
that's right.
And get really good at it, get great at it, and that's what you get known for, and then things just develop from there.
I think that's right. And yet, it's kind of common sense, and then you look around and you actually it can't be that common, because actually so many people are consistently adding complexity to their lives or to their businesses, and that makes it harder for them. So it's a really interesting chat, and you can get lost in the fog of day to day. Patagonia for me have been a great role model. I was recently over there getting shown around, and I didn't realize it. There's stuff that I wrote a piece when I was running Howie's about the journey of a carrot, and that became the sort of the footprint chronicles idea. So right. They were kind of really like super nice to me, which was quite nice.
What's next for? I mean, Hieatt is. What's next for for David Hieatt and Hieatt Denim? I mean, is it just Hieatt Denim? Is just right now? We're just on that. We're making the best jeans. In fact, the best jeans we can, and even the best jeans in the world.
Well, I think we make a great jean, and we probably make one of the best jeans in the world. And I guess we kind of knew that we were going to get there on that because of the skill and the craftsmanship that we have in the team with, maybe almost 200 years of experience in making jeans, which is incredible for a startup.
Yes.
But the thing is, I would like to try and bring some ideas to this industry, because actually the industry hasn't changed very much at all. And when you look in the Levi shop and you see a jean from 1876, they pretty much nailed it.
Yes.
And there's only so many washes and crinkles and little things you can put into something. But the industry itself hasn't changed very much.
Right.
Whereas lots of industries around them have. And the great thing about the internet has happened.
Mm-hmm.
And you go, well, how can we bring that internet to a pair of jeans? And we've tried with the history tag, and where if you make a product that lasts, you can tell those stories along the way through this little thing that we come up with called a history tag.
Yeah.
But I think that's just a start of a company that says quite openly, and we would like to bring some ideas to this thing, because we want to make jeans for ideas people, and if we want to be their company, we should have some quite disruptive ideas ourselves.
Right.
And that's what we want to do. And come March the 1st, I think once a year we just want to launch, this is what we're going to do this year. This is the yearbook coming out, and these are the ideas that we want to bring to party this year. And then that kind of feels like, well, people can see us and then make a judgment on those ideas, whether the company can deliver or not. But it'd be good to say, just stand up and say, okay, this is what we're thinking. We think this is pretty dumb. We think this might be a smart answer to that dumb thing. And that's what we want to get to. We want to have some ideas, and because they're remarkable things. they change. They can change everything, and they can change it fast.
Yes.
And mostly they change it for the better.
I think what's fascinating as well is that you talk about disruption, and that disruption is a word that gets thrown around, at will sometimes amongst in the business community. But I think what's actually really interesting is that and a lot of times people are talk about disruption, they talk about technology, but actually what you're talking about is actually not about technology. It's about disruption by bringing art and quality back into an industry and ideas of change. And I think that's fascinating, because what it does is just basically, it's almost the antithesis of this technology, shiny new object type of sort of like fascination, predilection that we have right now, where actually you're saying, well, actually we want to do the reverse of that and go back to not mass production, but actually go to small batches, individual, customized, craft-led, art-led sort of like stuff, and that's the thing that's going to change the game.
Yeah, and I think if you look at other industries, and interesting things are happening, and you look at the micro brewing thing that's happening in America. They're having huge growth by getting back to the thing that they used to do really well.
Yes.
But in their search for scale, they dumbed down the product, so it didn't mean anything to most people, but didn't offend anybody either.
Yes.
Whereas, the idea of craft beer, where actually you go, hey, I don't like that one, but I love this one.
Yes.
So they can't be everything to everybody, but to the people who are their customers, they mean a lot.
Yeah.
And so when you look at some of those industries, and actually the coffee industry, you take Starbucks and a few others out of the game, the thing that these small craft coffee companies are doing, it's just going, we're just going to make the most insane coffee that we can.
Yes.
And maybe we can build a business around being great. And that's really interesting, that suddenly all these companies are scaled in a way, a dumbed down product, and because it's easier to do that. Suddenly going, well, we're big and we're everywhere, but we're big and everywhere, but we're not very good everywhere.
Yeah, well, yes.
And so I think that's really quite interesting now. And actually, the internet has allowed all these companies to go and tell their customers how much they care about their craft.
Yes, and also it's also you can be
it's a mixture of the geek and the Luddite, and this notion of the gleek, or whatever it's called, where those two things mash up to an interesting person, because we're a little bit of both. We love this technology, we hate that technology, but we love this quality, and we're an interesting mashup too.
I think that's fascinating. I mean, I think there's a lot of fantastic sort of lessons there for other sort of businesses that are thinking about doing something, growing their businesses, and it's not about scale. It can be about quality. It can about aspiring to and achieving sort of greatness in their own little area.
Yeah.
And I think it's fantastic food for thought, and very kind of contrary to the orthodoxy around what is business development, what is business growth.
Yeah.
So
I think it's interesting times.
Absolutely. So, David, in the interest of time, and I wanted to sort of wrap it up. And I know I mentioned this to before when we first spoke, but I always end these conversations with one question, and that question is, what would you like to shamelessly plug?
For myself or for other people, or
I tell you what, you can go for it. Have a couple, or if you want to shamelessly plug, do something personal or something kind of company wise, or I don't really mind. This is your.
Well, no, I think look, I mean, if you want to buy a great pair of jeans, the Hieatt and company can't make a fast jean, but we can make a great one. But there's all sorts of great makers I could recommend. So maybe come to our website and you can see what coffee we recommend, or bags, or shoes, or boots, or tools. There you can see that we recommend lots of great makers, and the makers and mavericks of the world are on the site. So.
That's fantastic, and I'll make sure that all of this gets all linked up, and all written up and linked up and sort of pushed out there. So, and I'll let you know when when it's all edited and all going live and everything. And hopefully we can help you sort of spread the word and sell a few more pairs of jeans.
Yeah, fantastic.
Because I think actually the way I was thinking about it is almost, I think your jean company is a bit like jeans by slow cooking.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's it.
So it's good. It's very apt now that we're coming into the winter.
Yeah, no, definitely.
All right, David. Well, listen, thank you.
Okay, then. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, take care.
Cheers now. Bye-bye.
Bye.